But we have plenty of actual games to review here, which, man, it's been too long since we've been able to say that. So, like we talked about last episode, we have ranked versus ranked matchups that we're going to talk about every single week. We also, each of us, are going to pick a game that we wanted to highlight separately. And then it's week one of college football. So we have a bunch of bonus games just because we want to talk about them. But that probably won't happen as much going forward because we'll have the NFL to talk about too. But let's go ahead and jump into the ranked versus ranked matchups, talk about them quickly here. Start off with the highest ranked matchup of the weekend. Number 5, Notre Dame, going into the horseshoe and dropping to the Ohio State University 21-10. There were only Notre Dame only put up 70 something yards of offense the entire second half and 0 points. That was a big defensive stand by Ohio State, which that's the first time we've been able to say that in a very long time.
In fairness, that was really the case all game. I mean, it just seemed like we were waiting for Ohio State's offense to finally click and take off. And Jackson Smith and
Right.
Jigba going down didn't help with that. But it just seemed like they were stuck in neutral most of the game. When they finally got it clicking, it was like, okay, this is exactly what we all thought it would be. Didn't beat the spread though, so Notre Dame's talking about how big of a victory that is for them, and it's all right,
It's
guys.
kind of sad. Moral victories are still losses.
Yep.
If we go to the next
Facts.
ranked matchup of the weekend,
Oh,
next
this one
highest
wasn't even a
ranked, that should
moral
be,
victory.
yeah. This was a neutral site game. Again, a neutral site game in Atlanta, Georgia versus Oregon. Very neutral side of them. Yeah, Georgia won 49-3.
What shocked me
Yeah,
about what shocked me about this game wasn't that Georgia's defense looked like it hasn't missed a step. What shocked me is their offense looked good.
yeah. So
That
they
was
scored
an
a touchdown on each of their first 7 possessions, and then just didn't
Didn't score.
try
Didn't need to.
anymore.
Didn't
Right.
need to.
Sat everybody and just let it let the clock run out. And Oregon was very happy to get out of there with their lives still. So they accepted their fate 49-3. And I would expect Oregon to fall from number 11 to out of the top 25.
facts,
Absolutely.
especially with how bad Bo Nix looks. Look, when I'm all I'm saying is when you're throwing the ball and they have a cutscene of your offensive coordinator and you can clearly read the lips of him yelling into your headset, Bo, no, that's a bad day.
And Bo Nix is now officially 0-4 against the University of Georgia.
He was trying to get away from it, is what happened.
And
Yep.
Chick Fil A came in and said, "Hold on a sec, I got one more for you."
I want
Let's
to take
do
this
the
last.
one.
I want to take
Go
this
ahead, Bug.
last one, Doug, because I loved everything about this game. Part of the reason we did this is two of the games that we've well, the one we're going to talk about next, and the one that we already talked about, Ohio State, Notre Dame. Those are going to be two games we're going to pick, and there are other games that we want to talk about as well. That we wanted to have as just our general picks of the week to watch. And the game, of course, I'm talking about number 23 Cincinnati going into Arkansas and losing 24-31. Number 19 Arkansas, that is. Here's the biggest thing for me. I hate that Cincinnati's going to fall out of the top 25 because they absolutely don't deserve to after this performance. Equally, Arkansas probably deserves to be in the top 15 after this performance, and they will probably go up to 16. Maybe that's a very, in my opinion, that's a very high estimate for where they'll land. I think they probably need to be 14 or 15. What I saw from this game was two teams that never gave up. This was a hard fought game, back and forth all day. Arkansas, KJ Jefferson, again, one of my favorite college football players right now. Heart and soul of that team. He was dealing with some cramping issues, some of these early season things, and you saw it from both teams. The biggest thing is Ben Bryant is not Desmond Ritter, and that really hindered the Cincinnati offense early in the game. And while they kept fighting back from being down multiple scores all day, ultimately his struggles early on are really what the difference was in this game. If he comes out the gate performing well and that offense is clicking from the start, we might be talking about a Cincinnati upset going into Fayetteville to start the season. That just wasn't the case, and this game was fantastic.
Yeah, you could tell Cincinnati lost a lot of talent, but yet Luke Fickell has been coaching this team very well.
Yep.
Fundamentals are still, and he still looks like a good team. But that's it for our ranked matchups. We each picked another game to watch. Let's start with Tug for this one. What was your game to watch? What did you see?
Hold on, before we get into my game, I do want to give Ben a virtual high five here. He and I both picked very good games that ended in 1 point differentials.
Yeah,
It's not often that you see that, but that's what happened.
right.
All right,
That was
so
fantastic.
it is. I had Boston College at Rutgers. I might have misread this when I made my prediction because if I knew this was at Rutgers, I thought it was at Boston College. Either way, Boston College lost to the Scarlet Knights, 22-21. I knew it was going to be a very competitive game. I knew it wasn't going to be the most talented game that we had this weekend, but it was exactly what I expected it to be, a very hard fought battle in and out all day. I had the faith. I gave the faith to the Eagles, but man, I said it last week. I'm going to say it again. Greg Schiano and the Scarlet Knights have a toxic marriage where they both hate each other, but they're both better together. Like it's the only time any of the either the program or he is good as a coach is when they are together. So
What was
yeah,
really crazy to me is that game winning drive for Rutgers was just a pure Big Ten football drive. They just ran the ball for like 12 plays and scored. It was amazing. That's the first time Rutgers has ever done that in their history. So beautiful.
they decided to actually be in the Big Ten.
Uh, my game to watch was a blowout, so I guess we'll do this in the middle, and then we'll get to another good one. Uh, so I had Middle Tennessee State at James Madison, simply because I found the matchup to be interesting, and we didn't know what to expect out of either team. So I didn't know this was going to be a good game. Turns out it wasn't.
It was
So James Madison won 44-7. I did not expect this at all. But I will say, here's a couple things I knew going in. Uh, Middle Tennessee State, the Blue Raiders are switching to an air raid type system. They threw for like 120 yards on the game. That's not how you win an air raid scheme. So that was going to be bad for them. Also, whenever you're switching schemes that drastically from a pro style offense to an air raid system, that's a very different type of player you're going to be trying to bring in to run that scheme. Almost the same as switching from a triple option to a pro style offense. This is what Georgia Tech's trying to do, and that's why they're losing 14-3.
Or
It,
triple
it
option to anything else.
right. It's very difficult to do at least quickly. MTSU being held to 7 points is surprising to me, but at the same time, we knew James Madison was set up to succeed. They've been recruiting at an FBS level for a couple of years now, honestly, which is impressive in its own right. James Madison has also been a very big benefactor of the transfer portal. They bring in a transfer at quarterback, Todd Centennial. Centeo. There's no extra N in there. Centeo. Uh, 21 to 33, 287 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. He was also the Duke's leading rusher, 110 yards on 14 carries. That is wild. That's the type of season I'm looking for out of Lamar Jackson this year. So if James Madison can get that out of their quarterback, not only now do I think they're going to be in contention for a bowl game, they might be up there as one of the better teams in the Sun Belt in their first season in the FBS. This was a huge statement win in a game that I thought could have been very close. James Madison is awesome this year.
Yeah, I didn't pick them. I said I would if they were still FBS or FCS, I definitely would have picked them, and I regret not just going with it anyway. Um,
welcome to the FBS.
yeah,
Right.
this
It
is
looked like
awesome.
James Madison was welcoming MTSU to the
Right.
FBS.
Honestly. Wow. This was
But
a
now,
talent disparity in a very different direction than everyone expected.
we just had a targeting called on the field in the Georgia Tech game, and it was reversed. And we're going to a game that had a very clear targeting that is for some reason controversial among some people. I'm talking about
Oh
FSU
my
versus
god.
LSU. I'm not going to talk about the targeting. It's just the best transition I had. I legitimately picked this game. Jesus, my throat is all messed up, guys. I'm sorry. All right. I
Too
legit picked
much
this game.
cheering for college football this weekend.
Something like that. I picked this game because I saw that Mike Norvell said he would eat beignets on his radio show, coach's show, if they won. Well, they did it.
Beignet
A
season,
whole
baby.
a whole single point because special teams are indeed special. Now,
Wait, all right,
Norvell,
this is, I don't think you have this in your notes. So this is a crazy point to make. The only assistant coach who came with Brian Kelly to LSU, special teams coordinator.
so we talked about how Brian Kelly was on a hot
Oh,
seat because he's the LSU head coach. The
He just
fact that
broke fly.
the fact that he brought the special teams coordinator that led to two blocked field goals,
and
two
two muffed
missed,
punts.
two muffed punts, and I believe two missed field goals. Uh, that's 6 plays on special teams that you fucked up, and they're lucky that for whatever reason, for as good of a called game as Norvell had for FSU, deciding to run a pitch play on 3rd and goal from the 2-yard line just makes absolutely no sense.
I completely disagree with you on that. Pitch plays work all the time. The fact that the
They
running back
do.
fucked up his job is not the fault of Mike Norvell. That
It's
play
not.
works 9 times out of 10. The running back should have caught the ball and it would have been a touchdown.
I agree. I don't want to throw a ball backwards that close to the goal line when you got
Okay,
17 people right there.
welcome to football. Every single coach in history has a pitch play in their goal line playbook. I mean, that's
I-
you have to be that has to be one of your plays. You're not winning up the middle of that defense. The middle of the defense was getting to your offensive line at that point in the game. So don't run it up the middle. Right?
Yep.
You run it to the outside. How's the fastest way to get it outside? Either you do a screen, which takes way too much time to develop on the goal line, or you pitch it. The pitch works 99% of the time. I saw Danny Cannell on Twitter saying, "We pitch it all the time. Nobody ever complained." Like, we won a lot of
Here's
games with that.
here's where the issue lies. Norvell's seat. If you want to base anything off of fan reaction, take this for what it's worth. He's back in the good graces of about 50% of the fans. There's
Right.
50% still ready to get him because
I
that fumble happened at the 2-yard line with 141 left in the game.
I know.
And let's face it, if LSU has decent special teams, I'm not even saying good, I'm saying decent special teams. This game's going to overtime, and we could be talking about an LSU win and an
Right.
FSU 1-1.
Well, the
And
craziest part is after that fumble, LSU legitimately went on their best drive of the game,
yeah,
99 yards, scored a
yeah.
touchdown. The only reason you don't go for two there in the first place is because they had that big review debacle that killed the momentum of the drive. If
yep.
they went 99 yards with no stoppages from the refs, I would have said they should have gone for two. But the review held everything up. All right, let's go to overtime. We have all the momentum in the world. Florida State blocks the point after. Are you kidding me?
So, and
Oh man.
here's my thing with Norvell's hot seat too, Ben. You brought up that 50% of the fans still want to go after him. That's good and all. We said that Norvell has issues winning big games. We also highlighted that Brian Kelly has issues winning big name games. Norvell's in the good graces of his administration right now. He won that game. Like the
Yeah.
team performed, and he came in with the right strategy to do it. Whether I can nitpick plays all night if you really wanted to. How many plays were good calls or bad calls for both teams? I get it. That one is one that's visible, but like Doug said, LSU was beating them up the middle all night. You got to get that outside.
Right,
Absolutely.
that's been the entire playbook all game though. If we were watching that game last night, it was obvious to me what the strategy was for Florida State's offense. We need to get outside of this defensive line because they're more athletic than we are in the
Yep.
trenches. So it was a short passing game to the short side of the field, which means you want the play to develop extremely quickly, get the ball out of the hands quickly, get just past the defensive line, and then you have a chance. Which is crazy because you're talking about DBU, right? People talk about LSU that way. At the same time, that front seven was the most athletic front seven that Florida State has played in several years. I mean, the ACC doesn't have anything like that front seven.
You
So,
you have two guys on that front seven, the two edges on opposite ends that are all Americans.
right, right.
I'll say
So,
the best thing to come out of this is the entire SEC is against LSU at this moment because they are the only team to lose their week 1 matchup, and it's just absolutely beautiful. Granted, not everybody played, the powerhouses like Mercer or Utah State this week, but
oh man, I still want to talk about this Florida State thing though, because Mike Norvell clearly had his guy for this game. Like Florida
this
State
was a
played
great
their
this was a
played
great
their
game
asses
plan.
off.
Yeah.
LSU looked like one of the worst coached teams I've ever seen. The special teams debacles were half of the problem. They were also getting called for dumb penalties. You saw how emotional the team
That
was. That roller
targeting.
coaster of momentum
And,
was
and let's
that's poor coaching.
and here's the biggest thing, like targeting happens. Had Georgia Tech been called for targeting like we did when we first started talking about this game, that one, it was ultimately ruled not targeting. I could see it going either way. I don't have a huge problem with that. Besides the fact that the defender definitely ducked his head, that I do have an issue with, but that's a different discussion altogether. He was going in to assure that the runner goes to the ground.
I mean that as
LSU,
as nitpicky of a call as that is though, that
right?
was as clear of a call for targeting as you could possibly have. That's the exact kind of thing the targeting rule was set up to avoid happening in the
I
future.
don't understand
It
why
was the
if you're
crown of the
going to
helmet, hit the quarterback's helmet, right? That's targeting clear as day
he hit the
on all
quarterback in the chin. He came up
right
and went up into him. Like I
He
don't
with the
understand.
lunged.
crown of his helmet. Like
Yeah,
that
I don't
is
understand
he
why you're
led
not
right,
trying to wrap the quarterback up. Like that
right,
is insane to me how that
right.
ever happens. So I think
And
that
right.
absolutely has to go back to the coaching.
And there was the dumb celebration that now the defenseman for LSU is out for the season with a torn ACL on his celebration of a good
Yep.
play that he had. I mean, Keishon
Ghost of
Boutte, an
Martine
All-American
Germanica.
receiver, we talked about him as potentially being one of the best receivers in the country. He straight up didn't care to be in this game, and you could tell. Like it
Yep.
was obvious. He did not want to play in this game. And it's not true that he's in the transfer portal already, but he has deleted all mentions of LSU on his social medias. So we'll
I
see what
just want
happens
it to
there.
be true that he called Coach Kelly a fake Coach O. I
We
want that to be true.
we strongly considered doing a segment of how many times Tug got buried this week.
It's at least 7.
He's gotten Barry McCockenard more than your average bear. Put it that way.
Normally that would be a compliment.
I
Not
don't know
on not
when
on
that would
Twitter.
ever be a compliment.
Oh man.
Let's move on to some honorable mentions.
Okay. Before we do that, actually, we did make picks for all 6 of those games that we just talked about, the ranked matchups and
I
our
want to
games to
talk
watch
about
of the
this.
week. So both of you are 3-3. I'm 6-0. Life is good. We're gonna keep score of this all season long. There is no prize though. At least there wasn't last year. We'll have to think of something. There ought to be a prize for this.
Somebody
For
throw some
Fan
ideas
NFL.
out.
I think there should be a
Yeah.
punishment. Really.
Honestly, that's better. If you have any great punishments for having the worst record in our pick'ems each week, let us know on Twitter. Anyway, we do have some bonus games because college football is awesome and it was loaded with fantastic games. So trying to go in some sort of chronological order, all the way back to games that happened Thursday. Uh, Penn State Purdue was happening as we recorded live last week, but we haven't talked about the final score yet. And that final drive was insane. Penn State at Purdue, 35-31. Penn State does hold on to win. Unreal.
I
What a
have
game.
feelings. I'm sorry. I
Sean
feel like
Clifford is such a mediocre quarterback, and yet sometimes he pulls out these amazing fourth quarter drives and puts Penn State up ahead.
Doug,
And
you were just telling us though. You were just telling us. Big Ten football. You're up. You're late in the game. What should a Big Ten team do?
I know where you're going with this, and I'm not giving it to you.
I know. I just understand you going with the game plan. Understand you have your way of closing out a game. I have questions on how Jeff Brom handled the clock management at the end of this game. Not because he misused his timeouts, but because he gave Penn State a chance.
Everybody
That's
has questions about the game management at the end of the game there.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's why Jeff Brom is at Purdue and not at like a good school. Next game we wanted to talk about here, Virginia Tech at Old Dominion. This is shaping up to be a long-term rivalry very soon. Old Dominion's won 2 in a row now against Virginia Tech, including this season, 20-17. This is pretty amazing. Old Dominion wasn't a football team not that long ago.
Guess it wasn't all Justin Fuente after all, huh?
No,
I
it's just
guess
all his
not.
recruits.
This was actually a battle of the James Franklin coaching tree, with Ricky Rain over at Old Dominion and Brent Pry coaching his first game at Virginia Tech. And yeah, the James Franklin coaching tree looks like ass. Next game up. Next game up, 3-point game down in Bloomington, Illinois, 20 at Indiana 23. Man, what a game winning drive by Indiana. Illinois looked like they had this in the bag. Indiana couldn't move the ball, and then just out of nowhere, they had 70 yards like all the second half. That game winning drive was 75 yards. Then they did it somehow.
It's their
Love
first
college
conference
football.
win in at least a year, if not two.
They went 0-9 in conference last season, yes. And they just won their first game. So, congrats, Indiana.
Yay!
And props to the fans that painted Indiana on their chest in
Right.
tribute to the fucked up jersey from a couple of years ago. That was beautiful.
Then early in the day on Saturday, we had some fantastic matchups, specifically over in the state of North Carolina. NC State wins by 1 point at East Carolina.
This might have been my
And-
favorite game of the day, honestly.
College kicker moments, man. They'll get you every time.
But then also, same sport, North Carolina at Appalachian State, 63-61. App State puts up 40 points in the fourth quarter and loses.
10
That looks like a
touchdowns in the
basketball
fourth
score.
quarter. Yeah.
Unreal game.
App State had gone for 2 early in the game and didn't get it. So then they were in a position where they had to go for it at the end.
Yeah. And
Oh, man.
So
They had a-
actually,
they had a
it
receiver
wasn't
wide
early
open,
in the
too.
game. I think it was when they.
Yep. Yeah, so
It-
they scored a touchdown. They went for a point in order to take the lead. Didn't get it. North Carolina returned the onside kick attempt for a touchdown, which is the worst possible decision because it gave App State another chance. They went down, scored a touchdown, had to go for 2 this time, and couldn't get it.
I want to talk about this onside kick real quick because not only did North Carolina return it, their return team absolutely obliterated everybody from App State on the hands team.
I mean, you're right, but also, why in the world would you return that? Drop right there. You're up by 1 point. Take a knee for the last 40 seconds. You win
Because
the
how
game.
often do the guys on the hands teams get to score? Look, I know Ohio State had a dude score a touchdown, come down and blow a guy up on the next kickoff, but how many guys really
Right.
get to score touchdowns?
North Carolina lucks out with this one. Let's be real.
Yes.
63-61 over App State. Then we go down to Texas. Houston UTSA.
This was
What a
barn
freaking
burner.
matchup. For some reason, Houston was ranked and UTSA wasn't. UTSA should have been ranked. This is wow. Talk about a group of five matchup. Just like group of five powerhouses this season. Houston does end up winning in triple overtime, 37-35. UTSA is a team to watch out for. Like they're legit. It's kind of
Yes.
heartbreaking that UTSA lost this because
It was a
everyone's.
shame.
Yep.
It was a shame somebody had to lose this game. Honestly,
I know.
like this was really all three of the games we just talked about. It is an absolute shame that somebody had to lose. They were a joy to watch.
Another overtime thriller, Liberty at Southern Miss. Now a Conference USA versus Sun Belt matchup. This one goes to 4 overtimes. Liberty does end up beating Southern Miss 29-27. That means the last overtime, Liberty got the 2-point conversion attempt, and Southern Miss did not. But man, this was a tight game the entire way, and people are expecting Liberty to maintain some level of success even without Malik Willis. Hugh Freeze pulls it out in his first one. Just wow, tight game out of nowhere.
You know, talk about a ridiculously tight game for no reason. One that
Oh
was
my
at
God,
one
I
point
love
5-3.
this game. I love this game.
One that
I'm a
had
defensive-
reporters in Iowa City printing papers I-WA because there
No
was
O
no
to be
O to be
found.
found.
All right, so I actually watched this game from start to finish, and there's not much to highlight for Iowa's offense because it legitimately does not exist.
Spencer Petras has a QBR of 1.1.
I have a QBR of 1.1. All right.
Hold on. Hasn't somebody proven that like just throwing the ball into the dirt every play gets you like a 32?
That's NFL QBR. It's a very different
Oh,
calculation.
that's fair. That's
but
fair.
still,
But here's the thing. Their offense is trash. Their defense, I can't really leave a mark on because, well, they played an
they put up
FCS
2
team
safeties.
against an FCF team or FCS team that was always set up inside their own 10 from their punter. This Iowa punter might be the guy to watch for on this team. Like, I hate to say that, but it's the honest to God's truth. Punters are real football players.
Okay.
I mean, that is still debatable, but yeah, Iowa's punt team
On
won them this
point.
game. Won them this game for sure. 7-3, no touchdowns. It's the first time since at least 2000 that there's been exactly 7 points scored in the game, and it's not been a touchdown. And we say since at least 2000 because nobody really has that good of stats back that far at that point, and we don't know for sure beyond then. It might have been a very long time.
If I was a betting man, Iowa probably would have been the last team to do it, though.
We do know for sure that the last game to end 5-3 was Iowa lost that game. So Iowa's been involved in all these weird safety games.
Who'd they lose
Doing the
to?
safety dance.
I don't remember, but I don't remember.
Damn.
Still. Then the last game we wanted to highlight here real quickly. Utah, a top 10 ranked Utah team heading into the swamp down at Florida. And Florida pulls off the upset 29-26 in Billy Napier's first game. Man, the Pac-12 could not have had a worse weekend.
No, that's so true.
Wow, though. I mean, this is looking really good for the swamp in our
This
bracket.
was a last second INT as well. Like that's this is poetic.
So many great moments this weekend. I can't wait for more college football. Unfortunately, we have to wait until Friday to get more college football. Very sad.
But we get NFL football on Thursday.
Yeah, but like, who cares? because college football's way better. Haven't you noticed from this weekend?
I'll tell you what, I don't have it in the notes, but UIW is doing just fine without Cameron
Oh,
Ward.
wow.
They
Yes.
beat SIU 64-29. I mean, I had SIU winning the Missouri Valley Conference. I have serious questions about whether it was SIU or UIW that caused this score to be this way.
Right.
What I
I
can
do too.
confidently say is
'Cause, wow.
look out for UIW. Like, this is insane. The fact that they were able to put up 64 points after losing the best player they probably had. I don't want to say in school history. I don't know the team that well, but definitely the best player they've had in a very long time. Look out for this team.
Yeah, and speaking of Cameron Ward, Washington State did win, but it was against Idaho, so who cares? I did see he had a pretty decent stat line, but it's against Idaho.